Take the honor of introducing our special guest, Ms. Payzee Mahmod. Payzee is a child marriage survivor and campaigner of IKWRO, Iranian and Kurdish women's rights organization. Payzee is a survivor of child marriage who lost her sister Banaz in a tragic honor killing. A Kurdish immigrant raised in London, she uses her voice to speak out as a survivor, not a victim. As an IKWRO ambassador and campaigner, her story and experiences have reached international audiences through a TEDx Talk. As well as sharing her own story, she has spoken widely on the need for changes to the laws surrounding child marriage and honor-based killing. Payzee, you truly are an inspiration and a woman of courage. We are absolutely delighted to have you with us today. Welcome, Payzee.
Thank you so much, Fatima, for your very warm welcome. Hello, everyone. I just want to start by saying thank you for having me. Thank you so much to No Passport Voice for holding this very important event and a safe space for us to have this very important conversation. So my name is Payzee and I'm a campaigner at the Iranian and Kurdish Women's Rights Organization, where we support, advocate, and we advise women and girls who are at risk of honor-based violence, such as FGM, forced marriage, child marriage, and domestic abuse. And my connection to the charity is a very personal connection because they represent everything that I knew I wanted to be. They were free, they were unapologetic, and more than anything, they had a voice, something that I didn't have for as long as I remember. So just to give you some context, I was born in Kurdistan, Iraq, and my parents fled the war in '87, and they settled in Iran for 11 years before we moved to the UK. The very first time I went to school, I was 11 years old, and it was here in London. And it was the same for all of my siblings. I'm one of 5 girls, and I also have an older brother. I was raised, the only way I can describe it is as a girl. What that meant was being quiet, to put it bluntly. It meant not having a voice of my own, and it meant not having access to the most powerful thing that there is, education. Because through education, we learn our rights. And from such a young age, I was always told to behave like a good girl. And there were always so many conditions that me and my sisters had to adhere to. The things that we had to show that we were doing to be good girls then and forever. For example, me and my sisters, we all had to undergo FGM. It wasn't a choice, it was a must. And this must and this have to conditions were a running theme in our household. We were very tight-knit and we were pretty closed off from the outside world in a lot of ways, because my parents really feared any outside influence. And so they tried to shield us from seeing anything, from knowing anything, and hearing anything. From the outside world, I think we seemed like quite a normal family living in South London. But even just for a second, if you look deeper, you would see that things were far from normal. And just before my teen years, things really started escalating because one of my sisters, who was elder, she went into social care for wanting to be free, wanting to have a voice, and just wanting to have her own choices over her own life. She started clashing with my father, and as a result, she did get taken out of the house and was placed into social care. Now, this was a very sudden loss, but it was never treated like a loss by my family. It was just something that happened. And so now there were 4 of me and my sisters. And as if things weren't already strict, they got even stricter because my parents felt that the rest of us would follow in her footsteps. And then there was this even more overwhelming sensation of protection, and the rules just got tighter and tighter. And this wasn't just in my direct family, but also the community that we were a part of, the Kurdish community. They also shut us out because they were worried that other girls in their own families would also take my sister's footsteps and they would seek freedom, which was such a threat to them, a girl seeking freedom. Now, my father's solution to prevent me and my other sisters from seeking freedom was to have us both marry as children. I was 16 and my sister was 17. And very similarly, the weddings happened at between 6 months. So both were strangers, the men that we were told to marry. We hadn't met them before. We didn't know them. We weren't even allowed to speak to them or get to know them or really have any say in the matter. So we had Islamic ceremonies followed by registry ceremonies. So this happened all legally right here in the UK. And at the time, both me and my sister were at college. As I said, I was 16 and she was 17, and we had our whole lives ahead of us. And we had just started this amazing new chapter of our lives, and, you know, really looking forward to it. And somehow these marriages, these child marriages that were happening in our community, gave my family a sense of right back into their community, and they found their top position right where they wanted to belong. But it left me and my sister so vulnerable because we didn't know anything about marriage or relationships or sex, and we didn't have any access to any of that education. So we were left extremely vulnerable to the strong control that the husbands had over us, the domestic abuse and the sexual assault, the financial abuse, and so much emotional and mental abuse. This was something that we were both experiencing in our marriages, which we were in for 2 years. And all throughout those 2 years that me and my sister Banaz were married, we desperately wanted to leave, and we would ask time and time again. But there was so much pressure put onto us that if we had left our marriages, it would be incredibly shameful for my parents. And so we couldn't get out no matter how much we tried. And this, of course, affected not only our mental state, our physical state, but our education and our futures as well. My sister's marriage escalated quite quickly, and she finally found the courage to leave her husband, and she reported him to the police. But it wasn't that simple, because nor my family or the community would accept that she had left her husband. And then something happened which would put my sister in even more danger. She met somebody. And of course, this was probably the worst thing that could happen to her, because she was still married, and although she was separated, she was seen as her husband's property. And for choosing to walk away from this abuse and choosing happiness with someone else, it was decided by several men in my wider family and community that because of this decision she made to be safe, she no longer deserved a life. And some of you may already be familiar with how my sister Banaz lost her life. But for those of you who aren't, this is how a young, ambitious, loving, and nurturing woman was murdered for saying no to multiple layers of abuse. And this is what having a voice meant for my sister. And I know that you know she's not the first or the last to go through this. For as long as I remember, women and girls around me were not allowed to talk. They were not allowed to use their voice. And if they did, they were completely cast out. They were silenced in one way or another. By the time I was 18, I had already seen the examples of what happens when you use your voice. I'd completely lost contact with one of my sisters that went into social care. I'd lost a sister to a so-called honor killing, none of which made sense, and to this day still doesn't. And in my own marriage, I finally did get out, but at what cost? I had already lost my childhood. It was stolen from me, and my innocence. And my body was used by someone I did not consent to. My dreams were completely shattered and completely taken away from me. And with all this grief and pain that I'd experienced by such a young age, how was I ever going to be free from these experiences? Well, I can tell you it's a journey that I started not even that long ago, because it took me such a long time to even accept and acknowledge that these things had happened. A year and a half ago, I realized the power that my voice holds, and the power that each and every single one of our voices hold. This is why I'm so grateful to work amongst organizations like IKWRO and No Passport Voice, because of the work that they do for women and girls in marginalized communities. And even though we've been silenced for so long, women and girls like me, we have a voice, we have dreams, and we have aspirations, and we have goals. And if I'm being very honest with you, I never ever thought I would get to where I am today, because I went from having a massive family to mourning the death of my sister, wondering if my other sister is still alive, if she's still okay, and to seeing my father serve a life sentence in prison, to try to maintain a relationship with another sister who was completely cast out yet again for using her voice. But I'm here. And the one thing that I think has helped me, I think you know what I'm going to say, is this voice of mine, this loud, strong, and multilingual voice of mine. It's taken a pandemic for domestic abuse to be such an important conversation in our society. But we have to stop waiting for the femicide figures to keep going up. We have to stop waiting to be shocked, because we are shocked and we have been shocked for so long. We need action. And when I say action, I don't mean a national campaign, one national campaign. I mean campaigns that speak to every woman, no matter what language they speak, no matter what community they are from. Because gender equality is a universal language and mission that we should all care about. For me, as a result of what I went through and what I saw women and girls around me going through, I campaigned to ensure that no child goes through what me and my sisters went through. In England and Wales currently, children can marry at 16 and 17 with parental consent. This means that this is a decision that they don't have power over. This is somebody else making that decision, the most important, one of the most important decisions of their lives, something which comes with so much harm if done in the wrong way. So I'm really happy and I'm very pleased to call on the government, the UK government, to recognise this is an issue that girls are going through right here in the UK, and there's no laws to protect us. You can marry at 16, but you can't buy cutlery for your own wedding party. You can't go and buy the knife that cuts your cake because you are seen as a child. And that we recognise these laws are outdated. They put girls in danger. They heighten the risk of domestic abuse, sexual abuse, and financial abuse. And we have to want children to have better futures. As UK co-chairs, IKWRO are backing a private members bill in the House of Commons. And we have a second reading, which is in the diary for February the 26th of 2021. And this is where you all come in, anyone who is listening to this. There's something that you can do, and it takes literally a moment. We have a petition. We're going to share the link with you. And I will urge you to sign that petition and use your voice. Urge parliamentaries to back this bill and allow children to have a harm-free childhood, because every child deserves that. Child marriage is not a problem that only affects people far, far away. I think this is often the misconception. People think this happens somewhere, I can't see it, it's not a problem that affects me. But it's something that is happening all around the world. And as though women and girls weren't already at a disadvantage in our rights, the pandemic has caused this to be even a bigger issue. We're expecting millions of girls to be at risk, millions more. And the UK is no stranger to this abuse. I don't want you to confuse and think this doesn't happen here. It does happen. And the government have turned a blind eye for so long. To which I say, we cannot achieve gender equality if we don't ensure that every girl is safe from child marriage. And so I urge each and every single one of you, please never be silent on this issue and the issue of gender violence. The strength within you, no matter how many times you may have been told to be silent, to turn a blind eye, to ignore it, your strength has the power, your voice has the power to change this for girls. Girls far away, girls that you have never met. And we all have that right to use our voice. And if you're with us today, I want you to know, if you're affected by any of the conversation that you are hearing, or you know someone who's affected by it, just know that you are not alone. And you can reach out, and there are amazing people on the ground who are doing so much to support you, and we see you and we hear you. I read a quote on the No Passport Voice website, and it really stayed with me, and I want to share that quote for anybody who hasn't been on the website. And it was a quote by Diane Marie Child. It said, "A woman is the full circle. Within her is the power to create, nurture, and transform." And that quote will stay with me forever. I hope you hear it and it stays with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Payzee. Your story is incredible. And I'm sure, like myself, many women across the world are empowered by your voice. And at No Passport Voice, we are all about voice. We are here to voice for you, for me, for everybody around us, and give voice to the voiceless. And I'm sure you would have come across our slogan, which is, I'm the voice, a voice of all, for all. And Payzee, this is absolutely fitting on you, because you are the voice now and for the future, and for all the women in your community in England and all over the world. I wish you all the best with everything you do, and know that you now have the whole lot of us with you and behind you, and we will make a whole lot of difference in the world one day.